Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Falani. I hope you had a great weekend. Absolutely sorry for coming a few minutes behind schedule. First of all, you know, Cyril is here too. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Cyril knows why it is, you know, this most unprofessional way. You know, on Friday, we looked at the situation in River State, labor situation. We had labor, we had the deputy,
Well, the first vice chairman of the TUC.
TUC, yes, to tell us about the impending sort of shutdown, labor shutdown in the place. And we didn't have the government side, so we thought we'd have the government side. And government indeed was willing and had agreed until very, very certainly, like a few moments ago, Mr. Paulinus Insirim, the River State Commissioner for Information, said it wasn't going to be possible anymore. Now that left a gaping hole, and we still had to come on, but here we are. We'll probably get to the River State side of the story later on, but it is what it is for now. So we're not going to be able to hear what the government is going to be responding, but we know that the government is saying that if Labour were to go on strike, they would be in contempt of court, because there is a court order saying that everybody should just hold their position, and if Labour were to go on strike now, as far as the government is concerned, it would be interpreted as it should be interpreted as contempt of court. So Paulinus Insirim sort of apologizes that unavoidably he's not able to come on anymore. Now to the other big news. It's been all over the weekend, talking about P&ID.
An ID, you meant to say?
P&ID. P&ID. The scam, the crook Irish firm that was going to do us out of how much were they? How many billion?
Yeah, I think it came to roughly $10 billion.
In one chunk. And after that, I think I heard, I was listening to Bakoba SAN on one of these programs saying that there were other aspects to it, but at a minimum of almost 10 billion, 9 point, I understand, 5, 6.
9.6, thereabout.
Yes, billion. But thank God, the judge, using discretion, as well as the law, of course, and using the facts before him, decided to give us leave to appeal on the probability of fraud.
Yeah. As
lawyers put it, a prima facie case of fraud, you know, can be seen. And so it is only fair to allow, oh, that was like music to my ears. It is only fair, you know, because we had lost out in terms of keeping time. You know, we were late. We just didn't have a prayer until they came up with what is a probability of, you know, a fraud. And that is now going to be examined. And again, I've heard notable Nigerian lawyers saying that they are very, very highly optimistic that Nigeria indeed will be victorious. When you can't really say what a judgment is going to be, because it hasn't been given yet. Yeah. But I suppose the best they can say is that they're highly optimistic, looking at all the parameters, that we're going to come out of this. Everybody has been congratulating the Nigerian team and all of that, but here we are. So maybe we're excited about it. Every Nigerian, I imagine, is excited about it. Those scam Irish guys, P&ID, there's the I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Those scam Irish guys, who actually from the very beginning knew that with Nigerian collaborators colluding with them, they were not going to do anything about this contract. It was just going to be about milking Nigeria, and it was going in that direction. But I waste too much time because we have Mr. Dapo Akinyosun, who is certainly an eminent legal practitioner. In fact, he's lead counsel, Simmons Cooper and Partners. He'll be joining us. So, good morning, Mr. Akinyosun.
Sir, how are you today?
Very, very well. You could probably hear from my voice. I mean, what do I know about the law? But I'm pretty excited that Nigeria is not getting the raw deal that seemed to be imminent before now.
Yes, I mean, it is quite interesting how foreigners seem to take advantage of us. And they do it quietly, but anytime a Nigerian does something abroad, they shout it to high heavens as if Nigerians are the most corrupt. But as you will find out, they taught us 419, and they seem to keep going at it and not letting up at all.
Exactly. Now, the case seems to, would you say, twists and turns. It's come through all of that, because there was a time when I think in a legal sense we were pretty despondent, because just reading through the judgment myself, and I found that there were, was it the judgment or a newspaper article on it? There were times when we in Nigeria were actually advising ourselves to bite the bullet and begin to look for ways of mitigating the damage. At that time, we hadn't really hit on this whole matter of fraud. And I understand that in law, once fraud is alleged and indeed beyond that is proved, then whatever other thing you have erected on top of that foundation of fraud, as far as the law is concerned, it's not just going to stand. But there was a time when we actually, because I read stuff like there was a time when the Attorney General had recommended, they themselves haven't been recommended to, had now recommended to the Vice President, who was acting President when all of this was going on, and the acting President at the time had recommended to the President, and all of it was in agreement with, okay guys, go see what you can do with all of this and how we can just, come out with as little damage as possible. But now we're singing a totally different tune. Could you sort of explain the transitions to us?
Well, at some point in time when the case started, apparently, the Office of the Attorney General had briefed a legal counsel to look at the matter. And I guess the lawyer, looking at the documents he had at that time and information available to him, said it doesn't seem like we have a good case or a strong case in this matter. Sometimes a lawyer may come to that kind of conclusion if he's not getting information on time from his clients, or secondly, if it's a subject area where he really is not a subject matter expert and has not clearly understood the extent of the matter. In this case, as you would find, there's supposed to be an underlying contract, which itself is based on a gas deal. And unless you're a subject matter expert in that area, it becomes difficult to understand the issues there. The first thing was that the contract was supposed to be based on the supply of gas to the Nigerian government to power its power plants. But where the gas was supposed to come from had another contract with ADAX or Mobil, who was supposed to supply the gas. Now, if you didn't go through that and we're only looking at one side of it, that Nigerian government was supposed to take the gas, where the supply was where the issue started from. And unless the lawyer understood that whole gamut, it may have been difficult for him to come to a different conclusion. So looking at what he had, well, we don't seem to have a good case here. Let us accept and look for ways to mitigate the damage. So he wrote his opinion to his client, the Attorney General at that time. But until the issue of payment came up, until you are first confronted with, you now need to pay and pay a huge sum of money, that it came to the attention of the presidency. Now, before then, it's been a legal matter handled by the Attorney General's office. And when it came to the point of that, well, our lawyers advised us to pay, and the president has to take a stance, is when I believe it came to the attention of the vice president, who also is a lawyer and is a professor of evidence. And I'm sure the man had a sixth sense and looked at it and said, there's something wrong with this transaction. Okay. I may not be able to put my finger on it right away, but I think you guys should go and take a closer look at it. While we're looking at the issue of settlement, go and look at this transaction again. I'm sure there's something wrong. And I believe that is where you see the twists and turns. So they're trying to settle at one time, but the man is saying, I think there's something wrong. Let's look closer at it. And I think it's that closer look.
Okay.
And ultimately finding out.
Okay, that's an interesting point. So, it was the vice president, as you say, who had sort of, opened up that particular avenue, say, look, check this place out again. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it was when if you look at the memos that were exhibited, it was when it came to him as acting president for approval of that. He said, well, why we want to settle this? Why don't you look closer at this thing? I think there's something funny about it. Let's go and take a closer look. And that is when the whole issue of the EFCC investigation was started.
I'm looking at my phone here because I'm checking up on the on the name of the judge, Sir Ross Cranston, and he just taking one paragraph out of what he had said. I particularly liked, as a Nigerian, I felt good when I was reading the judge writing that Nigeria has acted reasonably, and giving the strong prima facie case of fraud, which I have concluded Nigeria has established. The position is along the lines of the identified, and then he puts in some legal jargon. But what he's saying in there is that those particular words were like music to me. Nigeria has acted reasonably, and giving the prima facie case of fraud, which I have concluded Nigeria has established. Now, so this is what you are saying. Nigeria sort of established this so that the judge couldn't ignore it anymore. The court couldn't ignore that possibility anymore.
I mean, ignoring the possibility would be that the court itself is now becoming an instrument of committing a fraud. Because initially, when it came to the courts or to the arbitrators, all the facts were not known to them. For instance, until the EFCC started investigating, did they realize that even the drawings that the P&ID had shown to Nigerian government had been paid for by General Danjuma to do a separate transaction entirely. But they packaged it and presented it as if they were doing it for the Nigerian government for the transaction. Whereas even the drawings they were using was stolen or used for paid for by somebody else. And then they came to you. So they didn't have General Danjuma's permission to use it. They are taking money from Danjuma to do a job, and then they came to use it for somebody else. So on its own, even the whole foundation is based on the fraud. But until that investigation started, there was no way Nigerian government would have known that they had done so much damage.
I don't know. I'm enjoying this conversation, but could you possibly sit up a bit, because it's just your head showing? Thank you. I think it's better now. A lot better. Now your picture is
now your face.
Thank you very much. So the other thing that I noticed is that a lot of us in Nigeria that are not lawyers and then directly concerned with the case actually had the fullness of understanding, I would want to guess, we now have as a result of that English judge, Sir Ross Cranston, because when you read through it, the man was explaining, I imagine that's what judges do, was explaining the reasoning behind every action and every decision he was taking, and he gave a whole historical perspective of the case until the present. I don't know if you thought that was remarkable, how he was able to take the entire thing and digest it and then make so much sense of it and show that he understood it.
Yeah, well, that is the job of a judge, really. Most judges do that.
Yeah.
And you'll find that they have to read volumes and volumes of documents to come to a conclusion.
Yeah.
Because each side is pontificating and saying all his own facts. I mean, look at the amount of volumes of documents the judges have to read through.
Yeah.
So really, a judge's job is very painstaking. That is why many lawyers don't want to become judges.
But then I don't want to go into the area, but I would imagine that maybe over there, God knows how many, legal assistants, how much technology, and maybe, I don't know, all of that would have been helpful, no doubt. Because sometimes I see our judges writing longhand. But as I said, that's the conversation for another program, and maybe I shouldn't unfairly.
Totally, because it's sad and painful, but as sad and painful as it is, it still goes on.
It does. So now, 43-page, the one PDF version I found, 43-page, 43 pages long, the decision that was handed down. Now the next step is to, I'm sure since we've been guilty on this matter of timeliness, this I can take for granted, I hope, that there will be no such issue in terms of meeting up with time for the rest of this case.
Well, as you can see, the matter happened in between administrations. And, for the first time, there was a change not only in the party that was doing in the government, but there was also a change of party. So even getting to understand all the dynamics and getting into things must have led to some of the delays in appointing council reporting back and forth. But I'm sure that with the current administration being in seat and handling this matter, it is very unlikely that you have those long gaps in attending to the issues again.
How long do you think before we're going to be clear of this matter altogether? Because we are in Nigeria, maybe in other parts of the world, used to cases sometimes going for 10, 15, 20 years. We can't afford that. Is this something that could be finished in reasonable time, like in the life of this administration?
Well, you know what you call reasonable time is not always legal timing. Sometimes, because you can hear the first part of it at the high court level, but there's an option to appeal it by any side that is not happy with it. So this is one of those matters I doubt will be concluded at the high court level. What we're still looking at now is the high court. There's the appellate jurisdiction that they can go to, depending on how they feel at the end of the matter. But certainly, the first part of it, I believe, should be over in another year maximum. But how long the appellate process could take will still be up in the air.
We find ourselves at this pass, and with some of us, I guess most of us are rejoicing that we have, as it were, another chance, sort of. Thank God for that the door hasn't slammed shut. But I don't know if you'd care to offer one or two remarks or thoughts on the whole matter of our representation. There are those who are saying our representation wasn't all that it could have been. Any thoughts on that?
The issue of representation is always left to the council. The government had selected the council they felt was best suited for the job at that time. And I want to believe council would always put in his best effort, depending on his own level of knowledge. And that issue of choosing counsel who has the appropriate knowledge for each job is a very tricky matter. The counsel I don't see any counsel who wants to go into a matter to lose. Everyone would look at putting in his best, but there are a lot of extenuating circumstances that could affect him. Sometimes, as I said earlier, and as you know, when there's a change in administration, a change in government, he may not be able to get information or responses from his clients on time. The lawyer can only work with the information available to him at the time he's doing the work. So many of these things, as we can see, are information that are coming back in. If EFCC didn't investigate, they may never have known that Mr. Quinn had used those documents somewhere else before. The lawyer is not a magician. There's no way he will know that. He must have to be informed. And there are a lot of underlying issues that would affect the lawyer doing an excellent job. So at this stage, it will be premature to say whether the choice of counsel was bad or not. I've read a lot of things being said about counsel, but it is up in there, still premature. I don't think that is a true representation. Incidentally, he's also a lawyer I know, and I do not think he has that bent at all. But
okay. I think the judge, talking about this Sir Ross Cranston again, he sort of had commented on the role of the EFCC in all of this as well, giving commendation. And I think even the Attorney General has, subsequently, in speaking, he'd added EFCC among the list of people who had done very well in this case when he was interviewed by another TV station on it. But hold your thoughts, please, Mr. Akeosun, because Alhaji Giwa has called in from Ilorin. Good morning. Okay, actually we lost Alhaji Giwa from Ilorin because I didn't want to cut you mid-sentence. Yeah, so the EFCC reportedly did, formed part of the judge's, conclusion. It's like it was helpful in there. The Attorney General himself has has even said as much. But here is the acting chairman of the EFCC. He's actually in his own, shall we say, helping an investigation. What do you think?
Well, you know, whether we like to admit it or not, EFCC has done a great job in bringing some sanity into many of the existing transactions in Nigeria. Prior to Magu's administration or time in EFCC, people were a bit skeptical about the quality of the investigations done. But one thing is certain, when Magu was there, the fear of Magu was the beginning of good behavior amongst many people. There was, and it shows that whatever happens to you someday, sometime, somehow, you could be called to account for a transaction you've done. And that on its own just gives hope to the fight against corruption that many people say we're only mouthing the fight against corruption, but this clearly shows that the wheels of justice may turn slowly, but it ultimately turns. And we do get to the root of things. So I think the EFCC has tried. They are trying, and they can still do a lot more, given the right circumstances. One thing that had hindered their work before always seemed to hinge around executive interference. But under this administration, we've seen that they worked fairly without anybody troubling them or saying, don't investigate. Go ahead and do your investigations.
Okay.
Whatever the results come up with.
Let me pick up Akin's call. Akin's in the UK. Good morning. Akin in the UK. Good
Hello.
morning. Okay. Akin in the UK, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Yes, we're waiting for you. Go ahead. Good morning.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. I would just to put a word forward with regards to what is being discussed now concerning the P&ID issue.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think what we should be talking about now is the corrupt level that has been involved in this whole issue about the Nigerians. With what you are discussing now, yes, you guys are doing a fantastic job, but how far have we gone to now brought those who are involved in Nigeria into all this mess? What have we done? Because here in this case, all this rubbish will not happen here. We sell our own goods to people to come and buy, and what I mean by our own goods is just about our own assets, like colluding with foreigners. The people that are so far involved in all these things have not been brought to justice. And that is why a lot of people have said that we should go the way of China. Not until we start doing execution, not putting people in jail. Execution by firing squad or by hanging, Nigeria will never change.
Okay. All right,
Akin.
Akin.
Deceiving ourselves with all these things that is going on.
Okay, Akin. Thank you very much for calling in. I guess I understand the way you feel. You know, most Nigerians are outraged, you know, only taking your question and using it to speak again with Dapo. One thing that has come out, as Dapo was Akin was pointing out there, is that this case is riddled with corruption through and through, collusion in high places. In fact, those Irish guys, the Irish scammers, the P&ID, they just couldn't have gotten as far as they did without the active collusion of our people. And that's the part that hurts. Very, very high level people. Yeah, Dapo. Hello. I'm putting you on the spot, actually, but it is what it is. I say the situation we find on our hands now.
You're breaking a bit there.
I see. I see. What I was saying was that the evidence of collusion is, you know, with our people. They couldn't have gotten as far as they did. It looks like there was a sort of understanding, agreement to just make this case as bad as possible so that Nigeria would be liable. That's the way it's looking. But then again, we are not lawyers, so maybe we're just feeling that way emotionally. But the Council for Nigeria, for instance, was saying that, among other things, that there was no cooperation from the people, from people who had evidence. They were not coming forward. Nobody wanted to come forward. Mr. Justice Sir Justice Cranston has said that there were many layers of fraud and so many different strands. I mean, so as Aki in the UK is pointing out, what do we do? Maybe, I know that we probably want to stay on the legal aspects of this case, but these are things that are coming out from this mess that is otherwise known as a case. Sorry, Dakwa, I can see that there's a problem there, but meanwhile, Tunde Emotion has called in. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for calling in. Good morning.
It's my pleasure being on the...
Oh, we're delighted to have you, Cyril and I.
Well, in respect of this case, in fact, I want to let you know that I'm so happy because when the judgment first came that Nigeria is to settle over $9.6 billion of a thing, and that they are going to anywhere, they will seize our assets. I said, God, Nigeria is done for this. But I can thank God for the life of the Vice President, who thoughtfully looked into that paper again, that saved us, and with the work others have done. In fact, it helps us greatly. And I pray that if the government can be sincere in terms of bringing those that are part of this problem to book, just as Aki said initially, there should be a level whereby people will be made to account for their atrocities. And until they start doing that, I think Nigeria will not be moving forward. And then Nigeria needs, what we just need from our leadership is sincerity. Once they are sincere with all these things, it will go a long way, in fact, to put rest. So we want to appreciate all the people that are putting their efforts in terms of getting this judgment for Nigeria. In fact, it's a landmark, and I pray that from then henceforth, things will work better for Nigeria. Because if that case has gone ahead and they have given us that judgment backwards again, that will have been, no, we don't know where Nigeria will have been. They'll just be seizing our assets, and by the time they start seizing all Nigerian assets on the waters, anywhere they find it, then what are we having left?
Yeah.
So I think it's a landmark judgment presently, but as the counsel that is with you there is saying, we should not just stop there. We should start working towards the next level.
Of course.
Because if we just say we have gotten this, what of the next level? Because this will not stop.
Yeah.
They will see what they want to get. Because all these fraudsters, they collude with Nigerians.
Yeah.
So-called Nigerians that are not Nigerians. Because I don't see someone that wants to sell his father's assets to outsiders.
Okay, I see what you mean today.
So I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share my opinion.
Thank you. Cyril, he has disowned them as Nigerians already. So so-called Nigerians, but they're not really Nigerians. That means if you're not a loyal Nigerian, then why are you calling yourself a Nigerian?
Unfortunately, these are the people who hold the pens to sign away the destiny of millions of Nigerians.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Which was going to bring me to my question to Mr. Aki-Osun.
Yes.
Am I correct? How do you, sir? How do you speak to our response rate, our ability to plug these holes, without prejudice to the good intentions of government in reaching international agreements? The P&ID notwithstanding, many other international investment agreements are signed almost every day. For instance, you must have seen the controversy that arose as a result of the China deal. What do you think we're not doing enough to mitigate or to deal with people who sit in government offices and sign certain contracts that are not even contracts in themselves, but outright scams, all in a bid to bring business. Meanwhile, in 1 year, 2 years time, this sort of thing just happens. How do you think we should be blocking these holes locally?
Dakwa, I don't know if it's any better. Did you hear him? I think we've hit a challenge with Mr. Dakwa Aki-Osun, the lead counsel at Simmons.
I can hear you now.
Okay. All right.
Hello.
Yeah, I can now hear you too.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I can hear you, but you need to be hearing us. Can you hear us?
I wasn't sure if that question was mine. I had the question, but I wasn't sure if it was mine to answer.
Yes, it
was asking.
Yes, could you your remarks on that, please?
Because it was breaking a bit, but looking at this kind of transactions, which are actually scams from inception, I think the time has come, and the problem we have in Nigeria generally is that there's a failure to punish and sanction people who do this. We will jail a man who steals a mobile phone for 10 or 15 years, but the man who steals $10 million, goes back home and throws it on the streets and builds a house, the people go back and hail him. And we have to, first of all, have a paradigm shift. We seem to glorify money however it is gotten in Nigeria as Nigerians.
Yeah.
Secondly, and unless we as Nigerians change our own mentality and start questioning where people got the money from, it will be difficult. Secondly, every time somebody gets appointed into a political office or a government job, everybody in the family, everybody rallies around to congratulate him as if he has won a lottery. Indeed. Because there's expectation that he's going there to loot the government.
One moment, please. Dakwa, one moment, please. I've got to go off on a quick break, but please stay there because as soon as we come back, we'll link up with you again and continue this conversation. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, and we still have Mr. Dapo Akinshun with us, lead counsel, Simmons Cooper Partners, and we're looking at the decision that has been handed out that has sort of given Nigeria a reprieve in terms of being liable for almost $10 billion. I don't quite understand it, but I did hear Lisa Agbako by SAN on a different program saying that there was yet another aspect. There were smaller sums that could actually bump it up a bit higher than that. But most Nigerians have heard about the almost $10 billion. And just before we went on, I think Cyril had asked Dapo if, what could we do about our attitude? And you were explaining that it was maybe a paradigm shift was what was needed, Dapo. I think that was where you were before I had to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Dapo, can you hear us?
Thank you. Yes, I can hear you.
Oh.
I was saying that the problem we have in dealing with corruption of this nature is hydra-headed. That firstly, there's a change of perception we as Nigerians need to get. That for everybody that displays wealth, we need to question the source of the wealth. Secondly, when people get elected or appointed into elective offices or government offices, we should stop expecting that the man has suddenly won a windfall and family and everybody is expecting him to give money. When he doesn't even meet the financial expectations, there's a lot of disappointment with people asking, are you the first person to get an appointment? We're not seeing the dividends of democracy. And we see a lot of that expectation. Thirdly, and most importantly, is how the wheels of justice turn slowly. If there's no consequence for bad behavior, people will continue to behave badly. I've seen in America, and the last 3 governors in the state of Illinois went to prison over corruption while they were in office. Over was giving contracts to family members, and it happens all over the world. The important thing is that what happens when you leave office? Unfortunately here, people have mastered how to use technicalities to delay justice. But the good thing that good thing we have seen in this administration is that some governors have been sent to prison. And it shows that eventually we're coming to a point where people are getting jailed for doing wrong when they were in office. It is not enough. We have not reached that magnitude because the magnitude is so wide that if the government was just going to concentrate on chasing past misdeeds, they will not be able to go forward.
Yeah.
So you have to choose at a point where you want to cut off. Do we pursue all the people who are taking monies illegally from independence? Because I'm sure that if you go that far back, you will find. The quantities are varied, sums are varied, because I remember a song as far back as Tuju Ilana when he sang some years ago that if you steal 1 million, they put you in prison. If you steal 10,000 and patriotism, you take it in billions. They say it's a rumor, but those things have been happening since then. The question is how far back we want to go.
Yeah.
And if we're going to start that, then how do we empower the judiciary? Don't forget that the judiciary itself is also filled with human beings who have some relationships outside office. So you never can tell what is operating on the mind of a person who is sitting on the bench. But different times you will find that unless that institution is also properly cocooned and secured, many of the things we're doing will still end up a joke. Well, because if the man is not, I've seen judges without orderlies or protection.
Yeah. Yeah.
If he gives a judgment and he knows that when he's going out, they're going to attack him outside, would he be bold enough to do it? And there are a lot of other circumstances that we need to take care of.
Yeah. And
starting from the protection to the welfare.
Okay. Good. Ade has called in from Zurich. Good morning, Ade.
Good morning, sir.
Okay. Good morning. Please go ahead.
It's good to hear from you today again.
Indeed. Great to hear from you. You got a question or you wanted to comment on something?
Yeah, I just want to comment on about the P&ID scandals.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
Greetings to James Sasuko, also, and your guest in the studios.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
There you go.
You see,
Asuko James and Cyril Abaku.
The office of the vice president for exposing this crime. And also, I just want you to know that in any country, this is not accepted at all. If you cannot even take a dime from them, you will go to jail for that, for doing that in another country. So it should not be allowed also in Nigeria. And also, we have to know that behind every such case, there's Nigerians that are invited them to go ahead and do it.
Okay.
So all the Nigerians that are behind this case, they should also be jailed for that. It's like we are selling our country for them. Come, this is free. Come and do this, and they are taking something behind it. This is bad.
Yeah.
Because it's not allowed anywhere in the whole world. You can't do it as a foreigner. You will be jailed for that. And they should be convicted for doing that or for supporting them to do that in our own country so that they will learn, other Nigerians will learn from that and they will stop this type of fraud. This is bad.
Indeed. Thank you very much for calling in, Ade. It shouldn't be allowed anywhere. It certainly isn't allowed in Nigeria. It is why you have the situation that we are having. Although Dakwa was explaining certain aspects of this whole the way the judiciary works, judicial pronouncements, technicalities. We in Nigeria, we've become sort of used to it in the sense that Dakwa mentioned inter earlier, people being, brought up after they had left office, and he was saying that in sort of an encouraging sort of way that the long arm of the law. But we, in our jurisdiction, we've also become used to the fact that you can be, the long arm of the law can catch up with you. You can indeed be convicted, and then you can indeed later on be not convicted anymore in this very, very same society. A single case. Meanwhile, Mr. Joshua, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Cyril, and your guest.
Good morning.
Good morning.
In all of these things, there's an issue that I think Nigerians are afraid to interrogate, or we are probably not looking at very well. That is the role of leadership. I know somewhere yesterday somebody was talking about the role of the vice president in interrogating this contract, and because the man has certain competencies, he was able to say, look at this way. Somebody will talk about the sixth sense.
Okay.
It has to do with knowledge.
Well, we just heard we just heard the man is a professor of evidence.
Yeah, I mean, basically. Now, it goes into talking about the people we put into leadership in the country. If the leadership of the country is bereft of knowledge, people will get away with all manners of things. You know, when you know that you are coming before a lawyer, there's already a mindset you have that this person is intelligent. So you know what you are bringing. But when we have leaders in Nigeria that are just carry go, when are we going to make progress? So we should now be looking at competence in leadership. And I know that will help us go very far.
Okay.
Because all of these things, corruption.
Yeah.
What is corruption? If you bring something to my table and I can read it.
Yeah.
There's also an issue of incompetence of leadership. Thank you, Uncle Yori.
Thank you very much for calling in. Again, let me go back with Dapo. Look, the counsel who was leading the Nigerian side in the arbitration, he's put out a statement. It's out there. And he was talking about working in the most, austere, legally speaking, of environments. People didn't want to cooperate. People didn't want to, witnesses didn't want to come forward. So he was really, according to the statement he put out, it goes back to what we've just heard now from the man who called in about our whole attitude to this whole matter. Or maybe is it that when money gets that big, I mean, we're talking about what we're talking about. Money was flying around allegedly. It then becomes also dangerous. I don't know. Because the Council for Nigeria, the SAN, was talking about being a virtual lone ranger. No, he didn't have any help. Does that speak, and people are talking about corruption. So sometimes when people like you, professional people, want to come into corruption, you need the cooperation. EFCC, police, everybody, they need cooperation of people. But apparently Nigerians, I don't know. It's not just Nigerians. It's just not Nigerians. Italians too, it is said. They don't speak as well.
Yeah, I think what we find ourselves in now is what I would call a catch-22 situation. We all talk.
Could I come back to you, please? Because, Dapo, I'm so sorry. Chidi in Kafanchan called in.
But we're not really ready to sacrifice for it. And you will find that every time you see a good man in office, attempt is to put him down, to shout him out of office, to remove him. And I'm sure he mentioned, the last speaker mentioned the vice president.
Yes.
And with every sense of responsibility, I'm sure you know the number of times people attack him on social media at the slightest thing, looking for a way to pull him down. Many people believe he is not corrupt, but very few people speak out to support a man like that. And what you then find is that when you find a few people who are bold enough to come into leadership and are trying to do things right, when their integrity and personality is attacked, and they tend to draw back and say, well, if this country is not ready for people like me. Okay. And that is why you will find the situation that he mentioned of finding the right people in the right places in government. Yes, many of the people you find in government don't even have the kind of intellectual capacity that you and I may possess to do some of the jobs. But how many people are willing to take the risk of their reputation, of their livelihood, of their job to go into government?
Okay, one moment, please.
There's a presumption that you are a thief if you go into government.
Okay, Dapo, I'm so sorry. I can see that this is a one-way audio channel. So I'm so sorry you couldn't hear me when I was asking permission to interrupt you so I could bring in a caller. And right now we have Mazi Okorafo on the line. Good morning, Mazi.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, our people.
Yes.
Honestly speaking, these have shown that we have strong, learned men and women in our judicial system. Kudos to our Ministry of Justice for the job well done. Now, the issue now is that with the facts and figures which they are presented that made Nigeria to get that favorable judgment, the question now is that Nigerian government should not allow such incidents to occur again. That is what we should do, because it's not a question of Islam Uhuru for everybody. But the thing is this, we have to go back to the basis. All the structure they have to, in order to get that international judgment, they should keep them up and doing. Not a question of come and go. At the end of the day, we start looking for other. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mazi, and for keeping it short. Well, we're talking about this case, and of course, the viewers have taken it to how do we prevent a reoccurrence of this kind of a thing, and Dr. Akin-Osun, who is our guest this morning, and he's been preferring some thoughts. It's essentially about a paradigm shift. But returning to the case itself, even the president, I understand, has congratulated the team. That Mazi just, sort of gave kudos to it. But we were talking about the how it's a bit like Siberia when it comes to this matter of prosecuting criminal cases or dangerous cases where there's a lot of money involved. It wouldn't be a Nigerian situation. We understand that back in the day, I don't know if modern Italy is not like that, but where in the mafia side of there was the whole law of omerta. People don't talk, that kind of a thing. And especially when people's mouths have been stuffed with money, so to put it in a horrible metaphor, they just can't talk is the whole matter. So it goes back to President Buhari's war against corruption, and Osinbajo is part of that particular team. So it's Buhari, Osinbajo ticket, and the war against corruption. There's a sense in which you can say that this is an aspect of delivering on that particular, plank of, of this administration. They are fighting this to the last conclusion, and here we are. Would you agree with that line of reasoning that this is, no matter how small it is, this is one aspect of fighting corruption? They're not letting go of any aspect. You got talent, use it. The vice president is one of such, and the man, a professor of evidence, it was useful. Maybe if he hadn't been a professor of evidence, maybe if he hadn't been a legal luminary, maybe the person, no matter how competent, might not have noticed what he noticed.
Definitely, and like someone said earlier, maybe you call it a sixth sense or just years of experience of doing this kind of work. And that is why we said putting the right people does matter.
Yes.
If this administration came out all guns smoking, we're going to fight corruption. But as you can see from day one, from the get-go, corruption has also been fighting back and stalling. And even in the US, you will see that a case like that of Collar that was being prosecuted with plenty of money is still ongoing till today, with recovery of assets still ongoing. And it is not a walk in the park. It's not going to happen in 1 day or 2 days.
Okay.
We are sometimes in a hurry to see the results. But the truth is that for you to do detailed investigations, you are not dealing with stupid people too. People who have stolen those kind of monies over the years have found ways to siphon the money, ferret it, clean the money, put it into legitimate businesses sometimes. That tracking and tracing it is always a difficult thing. It's not as if someone just carries the money and goes to put it in the boot in his house or in his bank account that you can find. You have to do a lot of work to track it and see what the monies have gone into.
Okay.
Otherwise, you risk becoming draconian or a dictator. If you just decide, oh, I suspect you took money and we're going to go and imprison you.
You can't do that.
Or like what happened in Ghana, line everybody up and kill them. Those could have happened in those years. But now that there's democracy, now that people have a right, fundamental rights are being observed and maintained, it makes it a lot more tedious.
We're going to have to leave it there.
You get
Dakwa, we're going to have to leave it there. And I want to thank you very much for spending all this time with us from the top of the program. Thank you very much, Mr. Dakwa Akin-Osun, Lead Counsel, Simmons Cooper Partners. Thank you very much. Okay, so that's our program. We've got to leave it here. In fact, the only time I have left is what we usually do at this juncture. Cyril and I say, please do your best to stay safe. Coronavirus hasn't exactly disappeared yet. We'll see you tomorrow, God willing. Bye-bye for now.